Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Founder Closers. The focus of this podcast is and will always be to focus on founders of businesses and everything that goes around being a founder. As you guys know, my background comes as running, building, and helping companies in revenue. And we've got an exciting guest to kind of take a slightly different angle of something that is really on my radar right now. That's the idea of how you build a company with the idea of ultimately getting funding and in an ideal world, moving towards an acquisition. So today we have Jack Marshall. Jack, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. So you and I got a chance to get to know each other a little bit, but for our audience, if you can, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into kind of everything that you've done in your career, which is obviously a really, really impressive career on the companies you've been a part of, that you've run, that you founded, that you built, and then we'll talk a little bit more about where you are today and what you're doing from that.
Okay, I guess so. My name's Jack Marshall. I'm an electrical engineer from Michigan State University, who did not have a good football season this year.
No.
But I've lived out in Silicon Valley since 1988. I came out here thinking they built silicon chips in Silicon Valley, but they don't. So I moved into software, and I founded an internet company back in 1997 that did photo sharing. It's the first photo sharing community on the internet, really, and I got real big. It took it public, and then in the dot-com crash, we ended up selling it to Canon, Inc., who was kind of a partner of ours at the time. And the person who built our architecture founded a security company called Fortify. I went to work with him because we'd become good friends during that process, and that company grew up and got bought by HP, and they went to another security company, and that whole team that was at Fortify went to a company called Alien Vault and built that up and sold it to AT&T. And then I worked at another security company that Roger was on the board of that got bought by Imperva, which was a public company at the time. And I've worked at a couple other cybersecurity companies, one recently called Bolster, which was in brand protection. I was the interim CEO there for about 7 months, and they had pioneered AI for brand detection. And we did a funding with Microsoft while I was there. It's a really good AI technology, kind of an early pioneer in AI. And I recently founded a company called CheckText. So that's my history. I hope everybody's still listening.
Yeah, no, it's a lot there, man. So let's go back to the first iteration of the first business that you created. That you said it was acquired originally. The first company was acquired by who?
Canon Inc. in Japan.
Perfect. So you ran that company, you built it up, and eventually Canon acquired it. Now, I think it's always interesting post-acquisition with a company like Canon. When they acquire your company, do they retain you in a leadership role for a period? Do they essentially buy the intellectual property and the value and then give you a payout and then you're gone? How does that work? And maybe there's not a standard way it works. It's just maybe how it worked with you on that deal.
Yeah, they kept my co-founder, who was the technical person in his team for about a year and a half, and I chose not to go there after the acquisition. And you think you got to remember, it was a photo sharing site to share photos, which everybody does on Facebook. But back then there was no iPhone, and your digital picture had to either come from a digital camera, which very few people had, or it had to be, you take your film to a drugstore, get it scanned in, and then it could populate to the internet. And that's what our technology did. So people could go to a drugstore, and we did things where you could go to the drugstore, drop off your film, and the pictures would go live, and you could designate a free print for your grandmother who's maybe in another town, and that would get your grandmother to walk into the drugstore to pick up the free print. Yeah. And, the drugstore would be happy to get somebody to come in their door, obviously, yeah. Right?
So. That makes sense. So I'm always interested by people like you, and it sounds like to me, Jack, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're an idea guy. Is that, would you equate yourself to be an idea guy?
I don't know. I think I'm more of an execution guy, to be honest. And Roger, who founded Fortify, I'd call him the idea guy.
See, I think, and when I break it down, and I'd love to get your perspective as somebody with much more experience than me, I think of, and there's not that you have to be one or of these things, but I think that when you're founding a business, you need to be an idea guy. I think you need to be a builder. I think you need to be an executor. And I think you need to be a finisher. I think that there's kind of four different categories. And obviously, a perfect entrepreneur has the ability to do all four. Most people are not a perfect entrepreneur in that sense. So I think that what I hear you do is that you also tend to align with other people that maybe help fill those gaps in your process. Would you think that those four categories kind of identify what an entrepreneur needs to have in one of those four, if not all four?
Yeah, that's a pretty good characterization. The idea is always very important, and like the idea with PhotoLoft, it was a neat idea, but the way it got big was the way we sold it, and I think that took a lot of trial and error because we stood up the website, and sure, people came and uploaded their photos and all, but when we went and made that underlying technology for other companies is when it really exploded, right? And we were kind of like almost the white label photo sharing service for a bunch of places like Future Shop, which is I think they had 100 stores in Canada and places where Canon had their photo processing equipment. That's what made it really big. And I think that kind of that execution, you got to get an idea. It's a good idea, but what are the customers? The customers will refine that idea for you if you're out there talking to them. And I think that's something that that I've done. And it's kind of like you don't make your product perfect. You go out there with what you have and see where it gets traction, and then come back and iterate on it until you get something that somebody likes. And I think that's where my expertise is, or what I've had more success at doing. Even with Fortify, we had the idea. Roger had the idea, and we went and talked to customers and had to refine it quite a bit till it fit into their environment and fit into their workflow. And that's when sales really started to take off.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I would identify myself in that category as I think I'm very much an idea guy, and I think I'm very, very good at the building out from the idea to the execution part. I think probably where I've probably struggled and where I've brought in extra people on my team to be able to help is that execution once the strategy is in place, once we built out and modified the offense, now having somebody to ultimately run the offense. I get a little bored with the running of the offense. I like the idea of the building it and the strategizing it and changing it, putting it into place, having the people in place. And then for me, I tend to either bring people in who have a level of experience to run it, or I develop people to ultimately run it so that I can then go attack a new project and a new focus that kind of aligns with what gets my juices flowing a little bit more. And I think also what my strength is. Is that kind of something you see similar in what you do?
Yeah, I for sure go through a lot of those steps. I also I think one of my things that I at least had success doing is building a team, and the team becomes really, really close. In most of the companies I'm at, I'm still good friends with the people we work with. And we have this kind of mantra, if you will, that we're like a football team, and probably would have played football if I had athletic ability, but but we go out there because we want to win every day. And why do you want to win? It's because what else are you going to do? You're going to wake out of bed and just like do nothing? It just doesn't make any sense. If you might have that goal of an acquisition or something, or going public in the future, but I don't really look at that so much as just day to day. Go out there, do your best, and win. And it's just fun. It gives your life some purpose. And if you do that every day, good things will end up happening because you'll just be a winner. And and you surround yourself with people who kind of got that same mentality. They just want to come in and do their best. In a team, like a football team, you need a quarterback, you need a wide receiver, you need a good kicker, you need a good placeholder. Everybody on the team has a spot that's absolutely essential and has to be played to the maximum level that it can be played at if you're going to win. It's I've had real luck at building those teams, and you get real close when you do that because it's a bonding experience, and it kind of keeps the politics out of it because everybody's marching towards that same goal. So to win.
Yeah, no, I use the same general analogy, and I'll line that straight back to football too. And I'll say, look, just looking at the offensive side of the field, yeah, your quarterback is your star player, but at the end of the day, if your offensive line isn't blocking, then they'll never give you the time to make the pass to the star wide receiver who's making his third different route that he's done. And sometimes the route here across the field is going to draw the safety in so that the guy can go deep. But you need the time to be able to get the ball to the guy to go deep. And even though that running back's there to run, he needs to do a little chop block as well to buy you a little bit more time. All of those things working together let the play become successful. And one small breakdown in that, the guy trips on his out route, the guy going across shuts his route short, the guy misses a block, he doesn't chip. All of those things mess up the synergy of that play and it's unsuccessful. So all of those pieces moving together are all an integral part. And yeah, so for me, I come from a revenue background. And so for me, the revenue background is always easy to build that momentum, have that team always going and chasing for the win. Where I've struggled in the organizations that I've run now, moving out of just being a revenue leader, but now being somebody who's over the operational side of the business, which is the stuff outside of the revenue, the maintenance of the happy customers. And that's where I've tried to run those teams, but I've understood that my value is best to be on the revenue side, building and growing a team, duplicating our revenue efforts in that aspect and moving forward. Now, the next role you did once you sold that to Canon, you then moved over to now not found companies, but you moved over to head up some companies for a couple of times around. How did you then identify the companies you wanted to work with that weren't companies you founded, and what was the things you were looking for in those companies?
Yeah, that's an easy one. It was just the people that I knew, right? Because when I went to Fortify, the guy who founded it had built the architecture for Photoloft, and then that team there. I think there were probably 9 of us that went to Alien Vault. Alien Vault is a very small company that was founded inside of Telefonica, the Spanish telco. And they'd come over to the U.S. looking for money, and the group of investors that we were with at Fortify agreed to fund them, but we would come in and manage the team, and we would make the headquarters here in Silicon Valley, and we did that. And but I went there because of the team, and same when I went to 2 companies after that. They were people actually from Fortify that were at each one, and that's what drove me to them. I just wanted to. I knew the people, and so it's always been kind of a team thing for me. And I guess I'm lucky in that I know some people that have founded these companies or are working at them, and so
yeah. And being in the Silicon Valley area also probably helps you be connected with people that are thinking like that and doing that. So right now, where you are now is you've recently gone back in the venture of founding a new company. Remind me, what is it called? It's called Check Text, right?
Check Text, yeah.
Perfect. Now, how many of those people are with you at Check Text today?
Well, we're just getting going, but I say I co-founded the company, but my co-founder position's been open. But I think I found a co-founder, and it's somebody that I've worked with a number of times, and he's got some stuff that he's going to bring to the party, and we actually had a meeting almost all day yesterday, kind of going through it. So we're going to kind of combine his technology and my technology and grow the company. But the people that we'll bring in are people that I've known. I've got a couple engineers that have done some things kind of on the side that I've known, and I have a marketing person that I've worked with in the past that's really helping me out.
What percentage of it is, when you're building one of these companies, what percentage of it is the people versus the product? Because it sounds to me like obviously the product's important. The product has to have the appeal. But for you, also, it sounds like the people and the team is such a vital part to what you do and how well you do with it. Is it more people, or is it more team, or is it a healthy mix?
Well, I think it's definitely the people, right? And a team of people, right? I think you have to have that. And as a matter of fact, one of the smartest investors I've ever met is one of the investor behind Fortify and Alien Vault. He used to be at Kleiner Perkins, and now he's at Ballistic Ventures. His name's Ted Schlein, and I was talking to him one day because I had some friends that were starting a healthcare company. And this was years ago, back when telehealth was getting going. And I was telling him about it. And he goes, yeah, that's a great idea. A great idea. And I go, would you invest in that company? He goes, I don't invest in ideas. I invest in people. And he didn't know the people. And I introduced him. I'm not sure where it went, but I know they didn't get funding from Kleiner Perkins at the time. But he was adamant that he invested in people before he invested in ideas.
Yeah, and I would imagine that there's two different phases of that. I would say that the investors invest into the people, but I would assume that the companies acquiring invest into the executed idea, though. Correct?
Yeah, it depends on what stage the investment's coming in, right?
Right.
If it's an
Yeah.
early seed deal, people are more likely to invest in people they know at that stage. But when you have traction, you have customers, it's not so much an idea. Then I think people will invest more on how they see the company is executing and the overall idea and what they envision the market. There'd be much more interested in coming in for a subsequent round. And there's huge amounts of people that do growth rounds of funding, and they don't really know you that well. As a matter of fact, almost every corporate VC won't come in at a seed level. They'll come in later because they probably have terms and conditions inside their or bylaws that prevent them from doing so, because they need a kind of a real VC to go in there early and do all the due diligence, because they're not going to do that. But they'll come in on a B round and help grow the company.
Yeah, makes sense. So just to fast forward to where we are present day, you've been an entrepreneur for many years. You've been a part of founding or building companies very successfully. I can imagine the landscape, though, has changed pretty drastically from 2025 to when you first founded your first business. What's the biggest difference today than there was when you first started?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that for me personally, I have the experience that I have, which I think I could make better decisions now and kind of not waste my time on things that aren't going to work. It seems to me also that there's a lot more seed money and VCs, kind of I don't want to call them founders that have made money and now they're going to do some investing. And so there's a lot more of that seed money around, whereas in the past, the VCs were all kind of institutional venture capital firms and seemed harder to get meetings with and harder to get in. But part of that may have been the experience, because they wouldn't deal with me at the time. It seems it's easier to get meetings and there's just more money floating around out there. But I also think that to grow your company, you have to grow it a lot more than you used to before there's any kind of exit or any kind of acquisition. And there seems to be a lot of M&A activity picking up, but exit's been kind of far and few between. Like when I first started Photoloft, I'd been at an automatic tester equipment, semiconductor tester company, and it had gone public while I was there. And I think we had like $40 million of revenue at the time. And it went public and then it ended up getting bought by another big company. But I don't think you come anywhere close to going public with $40 million of revenue today.
Yeah.
And no one really goes public, even though it's starting to change. And, but what's kind of interesting is people still are investing in companies as they grow, but because they're not public, the public doesn't. Only these institutional investors, and you see these huge rounds coming in, and a lot of the early people are taking money off the table in those rounds, and so because they're getting that payout, they're getting the liquidity. But it's only the big institutional people that get to benefit from that, because they made going public so difficult. You can go to jail if you have a mistake in your filings, right?
Wow. Yeah. So a lot of what you mentioned was around the way you do the investments, the money that's out there. What about just the difference in building, let's just say we're building this business just to be a successful business, and there's no seed funding. There's no money. That's the primary aspect. Is there a huge difference in regards to how you find people, where you build around? I imagine with all of the technology available to you, like building and creating a company around the software is probably 10 times easier in today's world with all of this AI stuff. And I think that dilutes a lot of everything else you just mentioned, is because you don't have to have some crazy background or some crazy ability to create a company in today's world. So I think it's really hard to separate yourself, or to stand out from the crowd in that regard. Do you see that as well, or do you see it differently?
Certainly, using AI to develop code and AI to develop, marketing and sales material has been huge, right? It's something we've really taken advantage of, and it's changed things dramatically. It's not like you got to sit in your garage for a year and a half to write something, right? You can do it a lot quicker and get it out there. What you're trying to do may be a little bit more complicated, but the whole software development process, I think, is easier now than it was 20 years ago. There's just so many open source things you can get. There's so many examples of what to do, what not to do, and the documentation seems to be better. I remember back with PhotoLoft, we had to buy a book called Undocumented Windows Functions, and to get things to work, you had to have that book, because Microsoft didn't publish some of these things, and somebody had written a book on it, but we didn't even know about the book until someone told us about it. But nowadays, you can go out on Stack Overflow and get help on just about anything, right? So I think it's a lot easier to develop the products, software products anyway. That said, what you're developing is probably more complicated than it used to be, and if it's got any type of user interface, people expect a lot more from it than they used to.
Yeah, I
So.
mean, that's so true. I mean, we inside of Spinwell, my organization, we saw a big opportunity where we had been providing staffing and virtual assistants for some of our companies that we work with, and we saw the opportunity for us to develop AI agents that could ultimately do 95% of what our VA staff was doing. But when we went to go develop it, we found an immediate opportunity to gain an advantage early. But then we also found an opportunity for us just to partner with a company who'd already gone through building and learning and doing these things. And that's been the adjustment of approach we had. There was a period where I wanted to try to do things outside of my forte, which was to build and train and hire a bunch of developers and have a bunch of softwares here. But over the past month, I've made an executive decision just to partner with companies that are really, really good technical founders who have the really good ability to build on my ideas. And then I'm able to work my operational revenue side of the business that aligns with their technical development perspective, and putting an aligned partnership together. And I've been able to do that with a couple of different companies too. Instead of me building a AI agent outreach program, I just partnered with a company who had a really good agent outreach but didn't have a really good go-to-market plan. And now I'm their go-to-market partner. They're my developing partner, and we work together in that regards. That's been the strategy that's worked really well for me, and the integrated partnership has been something that I originally didn't think of, but has been a super big benefit for me. Any advice you'd have for me on doing those type of integrated partnerships, where
Well,
maybe I would make a mistake?
I was going to ask you for advice, because I think that's probably a really good idea. And one thing I have not done and want to do, and it kind of goes back to your prior question about what's different. I would like to figure out how AI agents can help with the outbound sales process,
Love to,
right?
love to talk
An
about that.
SDR. Because it used to be people would respond to emails and phone calls, but no one does that anymore, right? It's impossible to get through to somebody, and I don't blame them. I'm kind of like that myself. I rarely answer the phone anymore. But these, I hear people are having great success with these SDR AI agents,
So
AI SDR.
you got to ask the right questions. Let me explain to you what I mean by that, and feel free to ask follow-ups. So a lot of times when people are saying I have an SDR agent, what they're more referring to are people that are handling AI agents that are handling leads. Okay. So if you're in a business where leads are being provided to you, and an AI agent is a fantastic thing because there's an opt in, a customer is giving you information. The AI agent is good enough now to be able to use the large language models and reach out to people in a B2C environment who have said, I'm interested, in a B2B environment who said, I'm interested. There are really good AI agents out there that are really good from a cold outreach on B2C. And I assume you understand the difference between B2C versus
Yeah.
B2B, right? Okay. Just
Hmm.
for the audience, for if you don't, B2C would be somebody calling an individual customer. So, like a realtor's business would be calling individual customers. That's a great B2C environment. Or a barber shop, B2C. A B2B is when you are selling into other businesses. Now, that's my specialization, Jack. That's my foundation. Is I built revenue teams in B2B environments, and I build foundationally through SDR teams, and I grow SDRs to be the future sales account executives, the future sales leaders. And I've got a whole offense and process that I do in my business and have done for over 15 years in the corporate world. AI cannot do that right now. It does not have the ability to do that. So if you're looking for AI to right now do cold outreach, navigate a gatekeeper, get past the gatekeeper, find the decision maker, have enough stored memory in that conversation to be utilized in the next conversation to get you somewhere, AI is not at the ability to do that. That's something that I am hoping to uncover and move out with in the next 6 to 12 months, but there is not a single AI tool out there that is doing that well. And I think that whoever can figure that out quick will have a huge opportunity for business companies like me and probably like you who have a lot of need around B2B. So for me, I still have a team of SDRs to implore for that process. Now, in the business that I've run, and I recently did an exit on a real estate business where we had real estate wholesalers that we work for. The AI agent is a great landscape there because that AI agent can make 1,000 calls at a time. They can have multiple conversations at a time. You can have it completely scripted to be able to do everything better than a person can do in today's world. If you have an inbound need, AI agents are absolutely great for an inbound need. A lead gen follow-up process, great. But from a cold B2B outreach, it's just not there yet. And I think it'll be very, very challenging for somebody to create one that's good enough to make an impact.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great information.
Now,
Appreciate
what
that.
I would tell you is there are a ton of people that are seeing a ton of success from outside the box outreach. For us in our business, we do start most outreach campaigns through email. We've got a pretty good success rate on open rate, engagement rate, and response rate. We have a process to where if they open an email, we automatically put them into an automation that then sends a connection request through LinkedIn. And when they accept that connection request, and all this is automated too, Jack, that when they connect that connection request, then we send a message through LinkedIn, and then we continuing the messages through email. And then there's certain prompts that then will kick in our personal SDRs to do outreach as well. And it's just how you build a campaign. But how you used to build an email campaign has to be very different. Either you need to build a campaign for engagement, or you need to build a highly personalized message one-to-one to the specific individual target you want to get results. The old way of sending out emails in a generic way will never work in today's world. I'd be glad to at least share with you what we do and how we structure an email from a global outreach perspective to get engagement. And then from there, you personalize. That's the approach I take. A lot of times people, I think, spend too much time sending personal emails to cold clients that they know nothing about. The amount of time that goes into that versus the return on the investment, to me, is not worth it. So I do a bit of a spray and pray methodology, but with it feeling personalized to the receiver, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. No, and that's a great information. I think it is one of the biggest challenges for any new business is how do you reach these customers, right? It's just a very crowded market. and not even product wise, just for people's attention. A
So
lot of people trying to get it.
for check text specifically, and I ask this question of all the founders that I work with, but for check text, what is your perfect ICP? Like, what is the ideal customer that would ultimately be best use case for your technology?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you said B to C and B to B, and you explained that to everybody. And this is really a B to B to C. Our ideal customer is like a mid-sized regional bank, and what they do, and this idea actually came from one of our design partners. It's a mid-sized regional bank, and I was just trying to sell it to the company, but they want to give it to their customers,
Okay.
and there's
So
like
white label your service through them.
right, because they don't really need anything but the email address, and they can customize the email address for their own domain or however they want. So it's kind of branded for them,
Yeah.
and then they can give that to their customers. And that if they got 500,000 customers, then everybody will have the ability to send in that email. There's no account to set up. There's no user IDs or passwords. Some people will never ever use it, but some people will. And when they're under an attack, and attacks come in waves because people will target that particular bank. They had like 4 attacks in the last 6 months. But someone has their customer base, and those are everybody has those, and they'll send everybody the phishing or the smishing text message. And if 3 or 4 people send those in, our technology realizes that there's an attack going on and generates an advisory that the bank can send out to the rest of their customers. So our ideal customer is a mid-sized bank that wants to do something for their customers because it also builds that trust with the customer. And there's regulatory pressure because like I was saying earlier, 1 in 3 people have been scammed over the last year alone, and the banks more often than not have to reimburse those things. If they get really high, like 6 figures, it may go to court or something like that. But if it's like $2,500, and the average I think is about $1,000 if people get scammed, the bank just puts it back because, geez, you can't even call your law firm for less than $1,000, right? So it's just cheaper and easier to keep the customer happy and eat the loss. So this prevents a lot of loss, builds a lot of trust, and that's the idea.
Who pays for it though, Jack? Like, I mean, and maybe it's a multi. What I would imagine is that either the bank pays for it and they give it to their customers for free as a part of it, or there's some sort of a protection package they offer to their customers, and this is included in that. And maybe they charge $5 for everybody who opts in to use it, and then that pays for the majority of the fee that you would charge them. Is it one of those 2 ways?
It's the former. They would give it to their customers. They would never charge their customers for that. And this, it's like you never pay extra for security at a bank, right? It's implied.
Yeah. So your customer you are a B2B business, but you are selling a B2C product in a sense. If that's
Right.
the way I
It's a
interpret what you're saying.
B2C, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason I'm kind of excited about it is it's because customers are never going to buy it. I don't think your average consumer. You may be a little bit different, but 90% of the people out there, if you ask them how many apps on their iPhone they have and how many they pay for, they'll probably say, "Oh, I got about 100 apps, but I don't pay for any of them."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm very cheap, Jack. I don't pay for any. You tell me I got to pay $2.99 for an app, I am going to find an alternative route. I don't know why. It is. I
Yeah.
don't know what that is, but yeah, I definitely have that, whatever that is.
It is. And in this way, the bank will be helping their customers. And it builds. We have a real estate company that's given it to their agents because it helps them recruit business because they give it to them during escrow. It's part of the package to list their house with them. It's like, hey, we're going to photograph your house, make your little interactive website, and we're going to give you this security service. So during escrow, there's a lot of fraud happens during escrow because a lot of it happens with text messaging. But
Yeah, it makes total sense. I like the idea. I think I can see how it can be incredibly beneficial. But to your point, you need to get to the banks to be able to get this in front of more banks, and then you need to be able to sell the value proposition of the banks. And there, I would assume you have to get to certain title. And so are you looking for that mid-sized bank as that ideal one? Those regional credit union type deals, those are the most ideal ones?
Yes, exactly. And we certainly do a deal with a larger bank and will, I think, one day. But starting with the mid-sized ones, it's a little easier to get in, and it's a little easier for them to roll it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could after this call, I could absolutely at least share with you how I would structure an email to a bank, a regional bank, and then maybe a different one to a regional title company. And I would have a very specific one based off that ICP. I'd have it tailored in a way to get a response. And then from there, the response is permission to engage. And then from there, we put the pedal to the metal a little bit. So I can share with you how I would do that if it's something that interests you on that.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah, perfect. So what is for you? How long have you been building this? I know you said you're brand new, building it out, just getting going. I can imagine, Jack, as a guy who's been a part of multiple startups and helping this phase go. Is it exciting? Is it nervous? Is it anxious? I mean, what's the feeling you have right now?
It's certainly nervous and anxious, and I kind of started I started it about 9 months ago, I guess, probably back in last January or something. But then I did a consulting engagement for a company, and I knew the investors behind the company, and they asked me to go in and help them. I did, and that took about 7 months, and so. I got a little bit of traction going there because I talked to some people about the idea, but then that wrapped up about 45 days ago. I launched the website literally. We had a placeholder one, but the website really launched last Monday. So it's very early days, right?
Love it. But you didn't say excited. Like, I would be so excited if I were you. Like, it sounds like you got a really cool product.
I am excited, and it's fun, and I find myself waking up early in the morning and just wanting to get out of bed, right, and go do it. And sometimes even at night when I'm not sleeping, I'll get up and do something just because it's just on your mind, right?
Yeah, like this is the part that like I would get concerned that 3 years from now when it's a ready-made business and it is just flowing and like that's where I would lose some of the excitement to where this seems like it's just the most exciting part to you're figuring out and unlocking a new thing. You mentioned earlier when you start putting this tool in front of potential customers, then the customers start giving you feedback. Well, what if it had this? Well, if it could do that? And then you're like, oh, let me go back to my development team and see if I can add that and what would it cost? What would it look like? It's exciting, man. So if you had to forecast, what does your next year look like? What does your next 5 years look like? And maybe you're not thinking that far ahead, but what does the future look like for you?
Certainly for the next year, I'm looking at getting customers, right? And I need to get this installed, get it running, and then complete the funding. I need to bring some money in. I think I was mentioning earlier, I haven't really spent time looking for money yet because I needed customers, or I needed some validation, and I didn't want to spin my wheels because that's what they're going to ask for. That's what I would ask for. But I have a lot of that validation now, and so I'm starting to look for customers. So I got to grow the company. I need sales, and I need investment, and I need to keep refining the technology because one of the things we do is look at political donation requests, and there's so many of them. We're going into election cycle, and there's a lot you can do there to validate that it's a real organization. There's people like Open Secrets that monitor funding and have worked a little bit with them. I'd like to get a direct input into the Federal Election Commission where all these things are supposed to be stored. They do have an API, and just want to improve the technology incrementally, but really grow sales.
Do you have like a whole development technology team inside of your organization, or at least the people that you're working with?
I have a small team that is doing the work, and they're consultants right now that I'm paying, because I'm bootstrapping this right now, so I pay them out of my pocket, and that's another reason I like to bring some money in because I don't want to do that forever.
Sure. Well, cool, man. I mean, it's to me, it sounds super exciting what you're doing. I'd love to see just, one of the reasons why I do this podcast is I love to get a chance to get to meet people like you and to add people like you to my network. And so I genuinely mean, like, after this call, let's jump on another call wherever I can help in regards to just giving you some advice from what I see. I'm glad to help without expecting anything in return. I'm excited to see what you're doing and what you're building. And yeah, now the one question I would have before we kind of cut loose around what you just mentioned is you need to get more customers in. In this customer assessment, is it for you with this business, is it the volume of customers or just the volume of revenue that the customers are showing you that's more important for the proof of concept with the potential investor? Or is it a mix of the two?
I think it's a mix of the two. Obviously, the more money, the better. But just getting a customer to say they'll use you is a big deal. And
Okay.
with the bank, there's a lot of they can't just do business with anybody, right? Because they got their own regulatory pressure, and if anything were ever to go wrong, and what banks really worry about is like some personal information on one of their customers getting leaked. Right, if that PII gets leaked, private information, that's bad. So they will audit us before, and we'll have to have certain standards like SOC 2 Type 2 certification before they'll really turn us loose on their customer base. Because if something were to go wrong, and attorneys come in and go like, you did business with these people that were working out of their garage and had no certification, and your customer information got leaked, that would not look good for them, and they won't do it. Especially the people we're talking to, because they've been telling everybody else in the bank not to do it.
Right, exactly.
So,
well, perfect. Jack, I've learned a lot from talking with you today. I hope you and I have an opportunity to talk quite a bit more moving forward. Before we let you go, any final words for the audience?
Well, first off, I really appreciate your insights, especially on how AI can help in that sales process. Because it's all the technology challenges. I understand getting those customers is really hard, and the fact that that's your expertise, I really appreciate getting the feedback from you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's keep the conversations going. And I'm here to be a friend. And if I can offer any more help, I definitely will. So for all everybody who's watching, I'm going to put all of the ways you can get in contact with Jack. If you're a regional bank or a regional title, or you think at least you would have the idea to be able to get some value out of check text, then feel free to reach out to Jack and let us know. Maybe if you are an investor and are looking for an up-and-coming company that might be interested in investing in, reach out to Jack. But until then, share the content, like the content, engage with the content. It helps us get it in front of more people. I appreciate Jack today, and until next time, see you soon, guys.
Bye-bye.